Hi, I'm Mark, and I've lived in Russia for 24 years. Well, these days there's no shortage of YouTube videos about foreigners raising kids in Russia. Most show the beginning, the arrival, the culture shock, the first winter. But not many stick around long enough to tell you how this whole story ends. Today, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to tell you what it's like to raise kids in Russia from diapers to diplomas. Let's fast forward through my first few years. I arrived in late 2001, got married in 2002, and in 2005 we bought our first apartment. Soon after, we decided to start furnishing it with children. Our twin daughters were born in early 2006. Now here's the thing. They were born here in Russia, so they started life with a clean slate. But I was a foreigner, steeped in American culture, and half of the parenting team. We decided early on they'd be fully bilingual. We didn't overthink it. I spoke only English with them, and my wife spoke only Russian with them. Here's the flaw in that plan. Yeah, most of what they heard wasn't from us to them, but from us to each other. And that was in English. So most of the early words were in English. Show me a boy.
Boy.
Show me kitty. E. Yes. Let's see. What's this?
P.
P. Yes. What's this? R. Yeah. What's this?
O.
Yes.
O.
What's this?
H.
H. What's this?
T.
Yes. What's this?
T.
T. When my wife returned to work after 2 years of watching the children, her parents helped with childcare. And since they didn't speak a word of English, that helped boost our daughter's Russian. So win-win. Let's talk about kindergarten. In America, kindergarten means a half day of learning before the first grade. In Russia, it's more like a full-time daycare. Kids start as early as 2 or 3 years old. Ours started when they were 4. Getting into a good kindergarten back then? Tough. In the 1990s, Russia had sold off many kindergartens during budget crunches. Population was dropping. But by the 2000s, birth rates were climbing again, but the facilities were no longer there. Now, we got lucky. One of our coworkers had a mom who directed a well-respected kindergarten in the city, and she liked the idea of having bilingual kids, thought they'd be a unique asset to the group. And bonus, it was just a few bus stops away from our house. And my father-in-law, a saint. He took them every morning and picked them up every evening. There was one thing our girls didn't love about Russian kindergarten. Mandatory naps. Every afternoon, 1 hour in bed. No sleeping, still had to lie still and be quiet. This became a daily battle, which brings us to school. In the U.S., kids usually start school at age 6. In Russia, 7 is more common. It's seen as better for emotional readiness. Now, I was outvoted 3-1 by my wife and the grandparents. But eventually, I persuaded my wife. The nap issue was becoming a real problem, and going to school would end that. No naps. So they started school at age 6. Now in Russia, school means grades 1 through 11. And schools came in 2 types. You had regular schools And you had specialty schools which focused on math, science, languages, music, etc. We lived in a good district, and our girls went to a solid regular school. But in the meantime, I was also volunteering at one of the city's top specialty English schools, which was just outside our district. One day the principal asked if I had children. Twin daughters, 2nd grade, I said. They speak fluent English and Russian. She leaned in. Why aren't they in my school? I said, we're outside the district. She replied, barely. A few days later, after playing it cool, we transferred them in. Now let's talk about Olympiads. These are academic competitions held in every subject at the school, city, regional, and national levels. Winning these can lead to university scholarships, especially from top universities in Moscow. Our daughters began training and competing. For 5 years, they regularly placed first or second, they took turns, in English language Olympiads. Eventually, we moved south to a warmer city, a little closer to Moscow also. My wife compiled hefty portfolios of their awards. Both girls were accepted into another excellent school. They kept winning. One daughter excelled in Russian linguistics. She made it to the national level Olympiad and finished in the top 10 of all of Russia. She now attends the best linguistics university in Moscow. Full scholarship, guaranteed dorm. Our other daughter wanted to go into the business world. She entered the National English Olympiad. She finished 22nd in the country. She got the scholarship, she got the dormitory. But the next year, she went back, just wasn't happy with number 22. The next year, she went back and finished in the top 10. In the fall of 2023, my wife and I moved our daughters into their dorms. It was a bittersweet goodbye. Soon it came the day for us to head back to our old life and for our daughters to continue with their new lives. We met them, said our goodbyes, and then, poof, they were gone again. Raising kids in Russia was overall a very positive experience for us, but it wasn't easy. Russian schools demand a lot. If you don't support your child or hire help, they will fall behind. Now, we volunteered for things, we got involved, and we looked for where our kids had a unique edge, because native Russian kids already have plenty of advantages. So if you're planning to raise children in Russia, accept the system for what it is. It's demanding, but it's a good system. Help your kids find an edge, whether it be language, talent, anything, and develop it. That's how you not only survive, but thrive here. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, Пока.